In today's episode, you will meet our latest Bay Area innovator, Elle Rustique. Elle is a social scientist, an educator turned startup founder and social entrepreneur, named milestone maker and one of the hot shots disrupting their industries by NASDAQ in 2019.
When I decided to, I call jump from the ivory tower, I really jumped into Silicon Valley. I joke that that's how I got my MBA, was because I attended all the meetups and then just started doing it.
Elle's journey is truly inspiring. From her role as an educator at Stanford University, Elle transitioned to become the CEO of TipBrightly, the company she founded in 2015.
My mother was a housekeeper. When I was growing up, she would take us to McDonald's with her tips. There was a dark time where I thought, I can't do this anymore. There's no one to help, there's no money. And she said to me, look at what you're doing here. They're just like me, you're helping me. And so I thought, okay, I'm really helping women like my mom. We just work hard, we just want extra money. Some money that a woman would most likely spend on her children or their home, because that's what women do with their earnings.
In this episode, we'll explore Elle's perseverance as well as the unique opportunities for learning and growth in Silicon Valley. This is Bay Area Innovators, and I am your host, Steve Ispas. Elle, welcome to our program.
Thank you so much for having me, Steve.
Well, so I want to ask you, you worked at Stanford as an educator, and then you made this change where you went into entrepreneurship. Now, I almost got a job at Stanford after graduating. It's one of the most prestigious universities in the US. I still regret in some ways not getting the job. I ended up in the private sector at LSI Logic. Tell us a little bit about Stanford, about your time there and the transition you made to entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so I came to Stanford in 2003, and I came to do a postdoc. So it was in education. So prior to moving to Stanford, I was in London, and I was doing research on, this is quite boring, it has nothing to do with tipping, but education policy. But the thing that is related to what I'm doing now is that I was very interested in opportunity and equity, diversity, so a lot of the DEI stuff, although they didn't call it that then. And so when I came to Stanford, I was doing the postdoc, and what my mentor, who is actually at Columbia, where I did my master's, told me, and she'd like me to do the same research that I was doing in England, here in the States. And so that's kind of what landed me there. So I was doing that research and then finishing that up. And then my mentor, professor, she created a lot of think tanks and organizations. So during that time, I was a researcher for these various projects, and they all related to schools and opportunity, quality of education, inclusion, and that's what we worked on. I would say too that it was about education innovation and school change. So that's definitely a theme that came through.
Well, I'll ask you more later about the opportunities and resources that exist in the Bay Area and Stanford, because it seems like it's probably unparalleled in the world. So what made you start your own business?
Right, so I think it marked about a dozen years at Stanford, and I was doing what researchers do, writing papers, leading teams, and I felt like it was just time for a change, to be perfectly honest. I was kind of, rethinking whether papers and publishing was really the way to create change. I felt that, when we'd go to these conferences, we were simply presenting our papers to each other, and that there needed to be a wider audience. So I felt like, though I enjoyed the research and I was very committed to these issues, I didn't think that we were and I say we, were making a big enough impact as fast as we needed to. So I decided to do what a lot of people were doing, which is starting a mobile app, creating a mobile app. And being at Stanford, I think that's one of the things you were going to ask me about, is it's such a rich environment for thinking, for people doing incredible things with research, and it's just a very stimulating academic environment. And so it became a place where I could really think about this problem that I'll say I wanted to solve. And that's, when I was a researcher, let me backpedal. So when I was a researcher, we did a lot of travel. And so I would find myself increasingly in these situations where I couldn't leave a tip. And so not being able to do that created a frustration for me.
In a hotel there?
In a hotel, yeah, in a hotel. Because I felt that I was sitting there in my room, I had just paid my bills, I had just sent money, I had just rebalanced my portfolio, all these complex transactions, and I couldn't leave a simple tip. So this was the problem that I kept experiencing over and over again. And I think what happened was just the way this life works sometimes is that there's just a synergy. My wanting to do something more concrete and create change and solve a problem, and then this problem that I wanted to solve, and then being in an environment that allowed me to kind of really explore, how would I think about this problem? I was very influenced by design thinking at Stanford, which really took a different approach to how do you create a product. So it was very much built on values and what was important to me, rather than coming in and saying, I just want to create a mobile payments app. It was more about, I want to create a solution that's going to help people and enable guests and hotel guests like me to be able to leave a tip.
So you've been recognized by NASDAQ as an innovator and a disruptor in society, not society, but in the industry. Yeah. Tell us about tipping. What is the culture of tipping in the U.S.? People like to tip for good service, right?
Yes.
And this is something that you wanted to reward. You wanted to have the good service being rewarded through
yes.
the righteous tipping. So you saw the problem in the hotels that this is not happening. So how did you go about to change this?
Yeah, so I think what I saw was really a missing piece. So it wasn't, I already knew that people wanted to tip, that people feel good about giving, appreciation. It's already grained in our society. So what I saw this as was just simply a lack of connection. It was really a technical problem because we had mobile technology, we had financial technology, and it just wasn't connecting. So the intent was there for people, and always will be, to recognize and reward good service, but they just didn't have the mechanism or the process to do so. So really it became a question of what kind of process could you put in place that would enable this transaction. And it just was natural for, I don't know if it's natural for other people, but for me, I remember sitting there wishing that some cash would come out of my phone. And it's really that desire to enable the phone to facilitate a tip is how that all happened. At the same time, mobile payments and contactless payments are all accelerating in use. So I can tell you a little bit more about that how that happened too with the QR code.
Give us a quick summary of what your company does and how it functions. What is the service that it offers?
So really, TipBrightly is a mobile payments platform that enables cashless digital tipping. That's put very simply, that's what it is a cashless tipping provider. The way it works is really simple. So you know how you scan a QR code on a menu, and then something pops up and you order? It's really the same principle. So there's a QR code in a room, in a hotel room, in a card, and it simply says, should you wish to express your appreciation, scan the QR code, leave a tip. So there's no mobile app required. All is required is the phone. And when that housekeeper's name pops up, then a tip can be left, and also a rating and feedback. So we put integrated that aspect, and that's been really useful for the hotel management and also for the employee to get that feedback.
What would you say makes people tip, and not just in the hotel industry, but in general, from your studies or from your research?
I think it's appreciation. I think it's appreciation for the help, appreciation for the experience that they just had. It's appreciation for, not having to do something that, that you would have had to do. I think that, the research says that people who appreciate, people who give, derive a lot of benefits from just the act of giving. I think that same thing happens with tipping. It feels good because you've helped someone, but the impetus is really the appreciation for an act that is done, and then at that point it becomes, well, why am I doing this part? So, for example, like how do you explain the different amounts that people tip? So, someone will get $100 tip, and others will get $5 tip. So it's hard to know, but one thing is you can say it is perhaps a reflection of like what their ability to tip is.
Some restaurants, they have a system where you tip before you get the food or the service. Yeah. How do you feel about that?
I'm not a fan. I'm telling you, I'm not a fan. I think it's specifically in the food and beverage industry. We're talking about cafes or places like the coffee shop and sandwich shops, where any type of kind of retail counter where you're asked to enter the tip before you receive the service. I think that actually distorts the purpose of tipping. It's no longer a tip, it's actually a service fee. And I think that that has really distorted how people feel about tipping. But I think in our case with hotels and tourist attractions and valets where it's already established and they want to tip, it's people aren't changing because of that anti-tipping movement. You see what I mean? They're making a distinction. So you will see, in fact, I just read an article of people say, I really dislike this, these terminals that say 15, 18, 20%, and it's random. It's really quite random, right? I mean, you see another terminal that will have 20 and 25. So it really is quite confusing, I think, for the consumer to have that there. And in this case, I would blame technology, because the technology enabled the contactless payment, but how the tipping got seeped into that is really, really interesting. I think maybe the business owner had an option to do that, but yeah, it's caused a lot of confusion and frustration.
Please tell us about maybe your most rewarding experience as the CEO of your company.
I think the most rewarding experiences it happens every day, and that is the tips that come in. As I track those, we all get alerts, and I just see them. I come in, and it just to know that every single tip was a token of was a statement of appreciation. To know that this was a tip that the housekeeper or employee would never have received. To know that we're on track to transact $1 million by the end of the year. So all of that, I think, to know that we're enabling that and we're making a difference. And I think I told you my mother was a housekeeper, and so when I was growing up, she would take us to McDonald's with her tips. And that mattered, that made a difference. So to me, when I see a $5 or $10 come in, I know that is some money that a woman would most likely spend on her children or their home, because that's what women do with their earnings. So that is extraordinarily very satisfying for me.
How does it feel when you talk to your mom or your family about your business? And I can see on her face you enjoy doing this. How does it feel doing this every day and talking to your family about it?
Well, I told my family today that I was going to get interviewed, today. And so I do share my progress. And they also follow me on social media and LinkedIn. So I always see, my son and my family, my sister, like kind of like, I ask them for advice. I've asked for things usually around marketing. My mom is really proud of me. There are times when there was a dark time where I thought, I can't do this anymore. I'm tired, and there's no one to help, and there's no money, and I said, I just can't do this. And she said to me, look at what you're doing here. And she said, this, they're just like me. This is me, and you're helping me when you do this. You're helping me. So,
That's amazing.
yeah. And so I thought, okay, I can't give up. As I'm really helping women like my mom, and she really pointed it out. I think she also said, we just work hard. It's just she associates herself with the housekeepers. We just work hard. We just want extra money. Yeah. So that really, I just started crying.
Well, next I want to ask you, how important was this whole ecosystem that exists in the Bay Area at Stanford to make your company grow, to make you grow and learn? And how can others benefit from this, what I think it's an amazing system that we have here?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no place in the world like, the Silicon Valley, the Bay Area. And I benefited, and I still benefit from being here. I think it all started when I was at Stanford University, which is just a place where it's really nurturing of new ideas, and so there are a lot of opportunities there to just learn from some of the best thinkers in the world, and you need not even be a student, really. You just go. And so when I decided to, I call jump from the ivory tower, I really jumped into Silicon Valley, into the valley, and there was so much out there that I could just learn immediately. So one of the things that happens a lot here are events, right? So there are events on product, there's events on, how do you navigate the legal part, how do you hire, every aspect of starting a company is all about, like, this ecosystem is about supporting startups. I mean, it doesn't make it any easier, but it's there to really help you, and like I said, there's no place in the world. So, I joke that, that's how I got my MBA, was because I attended all the meetups and then just started doing it. There were also a lot of organizations, and there was one real important organization. I will credit them for the rest of my life, and it's called VLab. So it's an organization founded by MIT and a Stanford collaboration, and essentially what the members did was kind of scout out different technologies. So in advance, 2 or 3 years in advance, it would happen. So there would be a working committee, and we would research the topic, and we would pull a VC who funded that type of technology. We'd pull 2 of the leading startups, and then we'd pull an incumbent who was challenging that. And that was really, what we do. So I learned a lot from that. And there was one event that I think actually really solidified my decision. And it was an event around financial technology, fintech, as they say. And basically all the startups were about challenging Wall Street. And that's actually what the title of the event was, Silicon Valley Takes on Wall Street. And that, for me, was, it kind of still gives me a little chills. When I saw that, I thought, this is okay. What we're doing is going to be challenging, payments and this is a good thing. So I really thought it was fantastic that there could be that kind of a title of an event that says you're challenging taking on Wall Street. Yeah, so really galvanized me.
I definitely identify with that. I started my first company when I was 21. And like you said, it doesn't make it easier to start a company, but takes out the mystery. It takes, see, here's the steps, that's how you do to get it started.
Yes.
And that's a huge help already, not to
Yes.
mention all the other opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, there's always someone that can help you with, a business plan, a roadmap, a vision statement. It's just everyone knows what that is, and it's the only place where, I would be at a cafe and I would hear people talking about options, things like that. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Please tell us about the challenges of management, some of the things that you learn and you apply in your daily work.
Yeah, I think management is absolutely central. It really can make or break a startup. And, a company need not be a startup, but in a startup, the management is really the glue that holds everyone together. It's small, right? The nature of it is small. So it's important that the manager really not only articulate the vision constantly, but also really supports and builds the capacity of the team. So everyone's doing this for the first time, really, right? So it's important that the management, or like me, will see someone who's maybe struggling with something and try to help them, or someone who is not doing really well and should probably not be part of the team. But those decisions of like how to support the team and create that synergy is really hard. It's one of the most challenging things to do, because part of it is intention. The other part is like, how do these people come along? Where do you find them? Like someone where people are saying, how did you manage to get all these people working for free, Elle? I said, they just wanted to, they believed in the vision, they believed in the mission, and they could see working for me. And I think I'm different from other CEOs because I have a background in education. So naturally, I really care about everyone succeeding as a person, as a staff member, as a team member. I remember someone telling me about this grid. And okay, so you imagine this grid, and there's 4 quadrants. And on one axis is, skills and competence, and the other axis is being a team leader. So the people that you want to have on your team are those who are highly competent and real good team leaders, right? Someone who is not so competent but is a team player, you can work with because they want to learn, they're being a team player. And then, over here we have low team player, low skills. Those are easy to say, you're not a fit. The hardest people to manage are those who have high level of skills, but they're not a team player. That's really tough because it creates sort of this dilemma. Like on the one hand, we need those skills, but at the cost of toxicity.
So success being part of hard work, I think that's so important. I kind of want to just throw this at you about AI. Now, it seems to me that AI, it's almost have the opposite effect, right? Because you're saying you don't really need to work hard because AI is going to do all the work for you. You can just sit and do nothing. And then a lot of people lose their jobs. So that's where the disconnect comes, right? Between the technology and humanity, right?
Yeah. I think there is a disconnect, and I think that question is a real one to ask. And I think the people who should be asking it are the leaders, the top, of, what does it mean to have, a humane organization? It's I think that, still think that with AI, with any technology, there's always a human element behind it that's some value, that has some value to it. It should help introduce the right questions. It can still help with, presenting, information in a certain way, so that people are still capable of like sifting through different, information. And it's just I think that, even with writing, right? So you can write a letter and it could be straight to the point. You can write another type of letter and achieve the same point, but you feel better about it. So I think the same kind of thing could essentially happen where, there's certain words that can be used, and if you're humane about it, you'll be seeing, back behind the scenes are seeing the kind of answers that are coming up, and then just, creating something like, okay, use nice words, please. So anyway, I don't know. I think that's a pretty, just an observation, is that there needs to be always, in my opinion, some humanizing factor, or else, the technology will just overrun what our values are, and I think that's the danger. I think we'll always need people, but yeah.
Now I want to switch gears and ask you what we briefly chatted about this before. The Silicon Valley is determining pretty much the technological future of the world through apps, through Facebook, through Link, through all these companies, right? However, most of these companies are driven by engineers. So you have engineers that are pretty much creating the landscape for the whole world. Now, of course, they're very talented, very good engineers. But tell me your thoughts about how to get more non-engineers, more creative people, educators or psychologists, part of this process of creating this technology.
Well, I think design thinking, that process is one place to start, because it starts with values and what are we trying to do and why and for whom, and explores the whole aspect of like the human what being. So if they're in this, what is it that they need to do? So it puts humans at the center as opposed to the technology and like, okay, we're going to build an AI, AI this or that. It's sort of like, what do humans need, and how can AI enable that? So it's a difference between where you orient things. I think that people. Let me say this. I had a harder time, doing what I was doing because I didn't fit patterns. I think that, if you do have a startup, you have a company, it's really important to value kind of the impact of the technology on people. Like, who is it affecting? Who is it not affecting? Who is it affecting that we didn't intend to affect? It all starts with a question. So if you ask these questions, then it gives an engineer or team pause. So if the leader of the team, director of engineering or the CTO comes in and you're saying, all right, what's happening with this product? Is it creating problems for other people? It makes them think about that. So I think the answer is having different perspectives, for sure. It's hard to do that in this environment. I think it's just having an organization that is inquiry based. I called it, where it's about asking questions and not being afraid to ask the hard, tough questions. And yeah, I think it's just I call what I do is emotionally intelligent product design. That we really take into the emotions of how people experience it.
And how needed is it for humanity versus a fad or something that's just making it more technologically advanced?
Yeah,
right?
Because I think no matter what country you come from, we have same gratitude is a universal emotion. Appreciation is as well, and so that's kind of how you kind of see it. It has to sort of surpass all of that in order to be something that is, I think, humane, yeah.
Well, in conclusion, any last thoughts or any advice for the young people out there who want to start a company and they're on the fence thinking about how to do it?
Just do it. Just do it. I think my advice is find something that you really are concerned about, that really, drives you. It really makes you crazy that this problem exists, because that's what's going to, take you through. And be mission aligned, meaning there are a lot of times that you'll have decisions that may not be, related to what you're doing, and just trust your instinct. And, whether it comes to people or, just product ideas, there's just, you have to kind of, your vision is your moral compass. And I think it's important, as someone who really values, humanity and technology, to keep that in front of you, and always know, okay, this is what we value. I value collaboration. I'm going to have a company where people talk to each other. I value appreciation. This product is really going to do as much as it can to enable that. And we have to mirror our values too. So I think those are all things. I know it's not easy and you learn it, but that's sort of my advice, having done this for, some number of years. Yeah.
Elle, thank you so much for your time. Good luck to you with your company and everything you're doing. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you for watching another episode of Bay Area Innovators. If you have a suggestion for someone who should be on our show, we would love to hear from you. Please send us an email at sfbay@epochtimes.com. Thank you and see you next week.